I'd be tempted to say that if you take 3 or 4 of your tape measures that you've got sitting around your house and lined them all up, just kind of measured something with them, most likely I'd be willing to bet that they're actually not going to all land at the exact same spot on whatever you're measuring. And so today I want to talk about 4 different things that I like to do that give me a lot more repeatable results, and I'm not depending upon a tape measure quite as much. Oftentimes when it comes to measuring and layout tools and things like that, there's just a lot of better options out there available than just a plain old tape measure. First of all, one of the things that I love is this delve square from Woodpeckers. Now, I know a lot of you guys, you kind of rolled your eyes automatically when you saw Woodpeckers, and I get it. They're expensive. That's honestly one of the reasons I don't have a lot of their tools. But this thing is not just a regular old speed square. So first of all, it's smaller than a normal speed square. It's only about 3.5 inches tall, but it's very accurate and it's very precise. And so I use it a lot for layout stuff because I can really trust it. So the base of this thing is 3/4 of an inch wide. The thickness of it is 1/4 of an inch thick. The blade here is 1/8 of an inch thick. And then the width here of this blade is 1/2 inch wide all the way around. And so it's very, very accurate, very precise. And so I use this a lot for setup things. If I'm working on a dado or something like that, I can really trust it for those kind of things. Not only that, but the offsets here on the side are both different. And so one offset on one side is 1/4 of an inch. So if I lay this up against a piece, I've got 1/4 of an inch on one side. The other side is actually 3/8 of an inch. And what that 3/8 is for is it's actually for if you're trying to work with 3/4 inch stock, you can lay that on there, make a mark, and that is directly in the center of your 3/4 inch piece of material. There's also a hole in this thing, and that hole is sized for a self-centering drill bit, and it is 3/8 of an inch off of the edge. And so we're going back to that 3/4 inch stock thing again. It's great if you need to center up a hole right in the middle of that 3/4 inch stock. Works perfect for that. Another thing that we can't forget though is it actually has holes all the way around on graduations here on 1/8 of an inch marks. And so you can take a mechanical pencil and put in there and make a mark and strike it down through. It's absolutely perfect. And this is one of my favorite things about it. I use it for this a lot. Now, again, like I said, I know this thing's expensive. And so there are some other options though that I've been hearing some good things about on Amazon, and they're a little bit cheaper. I'll put some links in the description below for that. Now, again, this is not sponsored or anything. I just like this tool. So I'll also put the Woodpeckers link on there if you're interested in purchasing one. But there will also be some cheaper options as well. A couple of other good options are combination squares and double squares. Now, I want you to understand, when it comes to these type squares, they are not all created equal. You want something that is heavy duty, has good cast iron heads on them, and that is going to make a lot of difference when it comes to accuracy, because over time, these things can get some slop in them, especially if you're using something that's got like a softer metal, aluminum, things like that. Just over time, they're just less and less accurate. So I would encourage you to go with something that is a higher quality metal. I will say that these here I purchased from Taylor Tools, and these are honestly seconds. They're called a blemished second. I got these several years ago, and the only thing that really is second about them is that they just have like a little bit of blemish in the finish or something like that, and they're not really that big a deal, at least to me, because they kind of just basically say on the website it's not anything that's going to affect how accurate it is or how good it works or anything like that. It's literally just cosmetic, and things in my shop get kind of blemished pretty quick anyway. So wasn't a big deal to me, and it was a decent discount to purchase these like that. So I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested. Again, not sponsored, but these are really good tools. A new tool that I've purchased recently, again, is another Woodpeckers tool. Now, this is what they call a Woodpeckers edge rule. And this is not just a simple ruler. What it is actually a ruler that kind of has a 90 that lays over the edge of a piece of material. And it has all of our markings and everything on both sides. Very, very accurate, very easy to read. All of your markings as they come down to the edges here, all of that stuff is tapered so that you kind of eliminate any kind of parallax error or anything like that that you could end up with. So very accurate, very much love this thing. Now, one side of this is 3/8 of an inch. So again, we're back to that. We're working with 3/4 inch material, plywood, things like that. This is a great strike a line. You've got the center found. The other direction, it is 3/4. And so works very, very well. It's also got a little, this is kind of just a little simple, honestly, it's kind of cheap feeling. And it's weird to me that it's plastic on here because of just kind of what their tools are normally made out of, but honestly it works fine. This is just a little stop that you can put on there, and you can kind of scroll this around wherever you want it. It's got a set screw here, you just tighten it down, and then you can use that as kind of a stop. When I'm building a lot of cabinets and things like that, these things have proven themselves invaluable. So I would definitely give this consideration. Again, I know they're expensive. They come in sizes from 6 inches all the way up to 36 inches, or you can buy a set. I think the set is about $100, but well worth it in my opinion, just because of the simple accuracy behind all of it. Another really good way to get incredibly accurate results is to just use a stop block whenever you're running things on, say, like a miter saw or a table saw, whatever it is. So it makes a huge difference. It really doesn't matter how crude or how sophisticated it really is. In my case, my table saw sled, it's got a really nice T-track system set on it, and I use a Cat's Moses stop block for that. Works perfect. I absolutely love that stop block. On my miter saw station, though, the difference is that it's very crude. A lot of times I just end up taking a piece of wood, clamping it on there, shooting it in with a 23 gauge pin nailer, just because I've never taken the time to put a proper stop block system on that thing. Still works, it still gets the job done. Now, a couple of things to think about and to really pay attention to when it comes to stop blocks, though, is that first of all, you don't want to, on, like, say, that miter saw. When I do that, the way that I do it is I actually take the stop block or whatever, and I turn it on a 45 so that I've got a point that I'm bumping up against rather than a piece, because dirt and dust and stuff like that will get in there and will slowly start to mess up your measurements, and that will cause you some trouble in the long run. So make sure you kind of watch that. The other thing too is, like on the table saw, when it comes to that table saw sled, I actually put a chamfer in the bottom edge of my table saw sled to help dust and debris get out of there and to escape as I'm working and things like that. Still doesn't stop everything, but it makes a big difference. Using tape is a quick and simple little trick that I really like to use when I'm just going to measure and mark a couple of pieces and they need to be exactly the same. So if you're going to use something and you're going to do a lot of pieces, you still want to use stop block system. That's just better. But if you just got like a couple of table aprons, for example, you just run that up there, put a couple pieces of tape around them, make sure they're exactly sitting on there nice and neat, and then put them up, go ahead and square your end, pull off of the other one and make your mark. And they're still taped together, and then we're just going to cut it again, and that's going to ensure that they're exactly the same and exactly perfect. And so in a lot of times on something, say like a coffee table or something like that, even if they're 1/16 off one way or the other, not a big deal because they're both still the same. One of my favorite jigs that I've made is honestly a jig that I used for a stair tread jig. Now, one of the problems that you run into, especially if you got stair treads between two walls, is that it's hard to get a tape measure in there and to figure out exactly, okay, I can get it against this side, but I'm trying to bend my tape around to get it to work on this other side, trying to guess at exactly what that measurement is. And not to mention, if that wall is kind of wonky and not exactly 90 degrees, when I cut my stair treads and put them in there, they're still not going to be perfect. And so one of the ways you can kind of get around that is a jig like this. And the way that it works is it's basically just like a 1x4 that just has a couple of pieces on the end. And those pieces are kind of just movable. They can kind of go in or out depending on what you need them to do. And honestly, they've just got a couple of wing nuts and bolts. And it's a very simple system. You move that around and you take that and you put it up on, say, like your stair tread area where you need it to go. Lay it down, slide it over to the edges, and then lock those wing nuts down. Bring that back out and then set it on your piece and then scribe your lines on your stair tread or whatever you're working with, and it will give you a perfect exact fit, and it will tell you exactly what that mark needs to be. Works very well for stair treads. It also works really well for things like built-in shelving and things like that. If you got some shelving that you want to set perfect and you don't want any gaps or anything. Another very simple jig is honestly just like if you're putting hardware on like a cabinet or something like that, instead of measuring over one direction and making a mark and then measuring up and making a mark and then putting it and then drilling where that's at every single time, just simply make a little jig like this. All you're going to do is just take a little bit of 1/4 inch MDF or plywood or something like that, and then a 1/2 inch piece on the bottom, and you're just going to use that to just slap it on there. And then once you figure out exactly where you want it, you'll drill your hole, and it'll be the same for all of them. You'll just use that same jig for everything. Puts all your door pulls or anything like that in the exact same spot. Works great for putting feet on cutting boards. Same kind of thing. Slap it on there, drill your holes, everything lines up exactly the same every time. You don't have to spend a bunch of time trying to do it all with a tape measure for 20 different pieces or whatever it may be. Now, if you're interested in seeing some of these jigs and tools in use, I got a couple of videos queued up for you right here that will give you a lot of inspiration on your next project.